You want to stick around and get over? You want to stick around and grab a drink?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to say,
It's an airplane.
Is that from RT to try it? Between West Window Church sponsoring is nothing to do with how much we can share.
Is this a luggage tag?
Yeah, well, now that makes sense.
Should I put this on my car window when I drive to the airport on Wednesday?
See if they get you preferential parking.
No, I'll put it on my car when I drive to the airport Wednesday morning and leave my car in the parking lot.
Good evening and welcome to the January 13th, 2020 meeting of the Sacramento Regional Transit District Board of Directors. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Director Budge? Here. Director Hansen?
Here.
Director Harris?
Here.
Director Howell?
Here.
Director Hume?
Here.
Director Jennings?
Here.
Director Miller?
Here.
Director Natoli?
Here.
Director Chenier? Director Cerna?
Here.
Chair Kennedy.
Here.
With that, we have a quorum at 100 votes. This meeting of the Sacramento Regional Transit District will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel. Tonight's meeting will air on January 15th at 9 a.m. and replayed on January 16th at 7 p.m. and will be webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. It is also closed caption. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker card located at the rear of the room and provide it to me or Adam. Please speak into the microphone and state your name for the record. We would appreciate everyone turning off their cell phones. Thank you.
Thank you, and would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item.
First item is the consent calendar, and we have a speaker on item 2.4. Speakers, on items 2.4.
Okay, is there any other item that a board member would like removed or discussed?
Otherwise, I'll move.
Okay, so we have a motion by Vice Chair Hansen and a second by Director Howell for, I'm taking it 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. Is that correct?
Yes.
And 2.4.
Well, we're just going to hear this. Yeah. So, okay. I was just going to. Someone's not the chair yet.
He's trying.
Jeffrey Tardigia.
Thank you, Board, for delaying this till June, because I really firmly believe that
you as board need to understand how your federal dollars may be impacted if you are not ready for dealing both ADA service and now that you've decided to take over the entire service. You have a plan, you have drivers, but I still have not seen or heard how in the world both drivers interactions with clients, and when clients have a dispute, what is your plan? As you may see in the past, that is very interesting and your rescheduling effort. And I have heard, again, legal counsel can probably provide the necessary information, but how many times do you miss an ADA ride before it triggers a complaint? That's an issue and something to be that you board members need to understand and find out about as this progresses.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And that's the only card I have. So with that, we will take the entire consent calendar. If there's no objection, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Next item, please.
Motion carries at 100 votes. Next item is public addresses the board on matters not on the agenda, item number 6.
Okay, I do have several cards from the audience, starting with Mike Birnbaum.
Good evening and Happy New Year to Regional Transit Board, riders, staff. Mike Birnbaum here to just reminder and talk about back in December, your board, along with the board of the Yolo County Transportation District, unanimously approved the start of the Causeway Connection service, which will begin on Monday, April 6th, 2020. Tonight, just wanted to bring one little bit of awareness to everyone here in the viewing audience, and that's to note that Sacramento Regional Transit District and the Yolo County Transit District mainly agree on the holiday schedules everyone observes on an annual basis, although 2 dates on the calendar every year do stand out. And wanted to let you know that it's a good thing the service is starting in April because the working group would have several months to consider the fact that Martin Luther King Day is a Sunday holiday schedule on Sacramento Regional Transit District, but it is a weekday schedule for bus routes in the Yolo County Transportation District. It flip-flops on President's Day. On President's Day, the Sacramento Regional Transit District is on a regular weekday schedule, but the Yolo County Transportation District observes President's Day as a Sunday holiday schedule. And that is also noted, if you haven't seen yet, in the new Airport Express buses, the holiday schedules are clearly stated in that document as well. So that is something I think that would catch a lot of people's attention if they read the fine details quite firmly. And with the Causeway Connection being a service that the same route number could be a trip operated by either district when the schedule starts on April 6th of 2020, that when 2021 comes around and those two particular holidays come around, hopefully at that point in time, the two districts can come to an agreement on what schedule to operate on both Martin Luther King Day and President's Day, starting with that calendar year and going forward. So I wanted to bring that to your attention and just a little food for thought to start the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Rosalie Rashid.
Good evening, Board and our manager, Henry Lee. I am a 16-year long-time transit rider, and I am a member of SAC-TRU. I would like to invite you all to ride public transit for 1 week in January, starting tonight, January 13th through January 19th. We at SAC-TRU believe the best way to make informed choices is through a first-hand experience of what riding on public transit in our community is really like. We will be tracking points through photos posted on social media of participants actively riding public transit and using hashtag SACRT Challenge to tag photos on Facebook, Twitter, or through direct email. All information will be updated daily on SAC-TRU's website tracker. We hope you all will embrace this fun community event and help create enthusiasm and some excitement around our public transit system. And we do understand that using public transit can be more challenging for some in some communities, and hope this experience highlights how important incorporating public transit funding is for equitable economic development. No more transit last planning. As a frequent daily rider on transit, I look forward to seeing you all, especially my rep, Steve Hansen. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalie. My ride-in didn't count this morning, huh? Jeffrey Tartagia.
Jeffrey Tartagia. Well, echoing the statements through there, I started in the 38 today, had a problem and had to report it to Disability Services, or should we say the customer advocacy, because a 38 tried to pick up people on the street or drop them off. But anyway, went to a few other meetings through there, and here I am tonight. Two things that I would like to encourage is, one, guys, get out there and ride this week. See what you find and learn, because one of the things that is missing is riders on this board to know what in the world is going on. I could spend 2 minutes talking to the general manager about all the issues and problems through here, but I will not do that. But I will offer this, is you guys need to know about the signage. You also need to know about what you have got in pilot projects that are going on. And please get an evaluation of them. You had a problem with the, should we say, microtransit that stopped you in August from going forward. Here you have Initial I-6. One of the problems that I first discovered after loading the app was it will only allow one side of Broadway, because it's the way you guys mapped it out through there. But there are other things that you will find out. The 40 bus signs that you missed out hearing from the previous IT guy, want to find out still whether they have a second time clock in there. Last year I talked about this, and Roger took over and found out that there was 40 electronic bulletin boards that were not working. Somebody that's doing it right now has made some good changes and get to see a better feedback of information. But the website needs to be updated, because there's a number of things on the website that really need to be read through there, because some of them are old and you don't reflect about what's happening with the transit on the 11, of all the detours. You don't reflect about the 88 or the 86 because it's being relocated to 9th Street. And you've got a number of other issues. I'm looking forward this year to see how you evaluate the 30 and maybe consider the importance of 30 being restored back to more the 15 rather than the half-hour schedule. I believe you would just address the problem where at the Sac Valley Station where you're 30 minutes there and you have all of them marked as 30 until, they start to leave. There are other issues on there, but you guys will get them corrected over time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could, can I ask the general manager if he can respond to some of the concerns expressed about the relevance of the website relative to some of the recent route changes we've made?
Okay. Yes.
No, can you, where are we with making sure that it's consistent with the route changes?
We very much addressed majority of the concerns. We would constantly, some customers ask us, hey, there's some missed, the signs, whatever we have not taken out. 2 weeks ago, one customer, we talk about the one in actually, I forget which route, a customer actually spoke actually in front of the previous board meeting. We immediately gone through all of those, that route, and eventually we changed all, the issues that customer point out. We will work with Jeff to say exactly which places he's.
I just think, given the testimony, it's the right time just to stress again in public that due to the nature of the service that we provide, it's exceptionally important. It's very important that we have real-time adjustments in all the information platforms we offer in terms of the logistics of our routes when we make changes. So that should happen as close to real-time as possible. Thanks.
Thank you. Sarah Kerber.
Good evening, Board. I'm here to express the concerns of the Sacramento Transit Riders Union, SACTRU, regarding the ongoing removal and impact to bus stops and shelters as a result of construction in our region. You'll remember that as a result of the city's Complete Streets project, we saw several bus stops disappear along J Street without any notice to riders. Bus stops that were important transfer points connecting to hospitals and job centers. As new and ongoing construction downtown increases, it's causing bus stops to be removed, creating confusion about where the new bus stop locations are, getting back to making sure we have updated information available to the public in real time. And it's also putting bus stops in locations that are less than ideal, sometimes in between garbage cans. And it's resulting in significant bus bunching, which at times forces riders to board and exit buses in the middle of a lane, in the middle of the street. Our members are tired of being blindsided by these changes. We're tired of being forced to disrupt our lives at the whim of a developer or a poorly planned project that just forgot about public transit. We demand an end to transit last planning. The difference in a block or two, or the removal of a stop altogether, may not mean a lot to you, but to transit-dependent riders, to seniors, to riders with vision and mobility challenges, this is a significant health and safety issue, an equity issue, and it needs to stop. We are here today to ask that you, as SAC-RT board members, go back to your individual jurisdictions and direct staff to update their existing processes so that any time a project impacts a public transit stop, they are required to notify SAC-RT so that riders can be informed in a meaningful and timely way that a change is coming. If this is a process that already exists, then it's broken. We understand that construction projects happen, and we are glad to have a growing and robust economy, but these projects don't happen overnight. They happen after months or years of planning. We need thoughtful, equitable planning that includes increasing public transit access and infrastructure, not the ongoing reckless removal of access to public transit because a developer doesn't like where it's located or it was an afterthought to the project. We urge you to look into current policies and give city and county staff guidance on this issue to ensure that the SAC-RT staff understands when projects are coming their way and are able to protect riders' access to public transit in your region. We also hope that we see you on public or social media riding public transit this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Felix Huerta.
I have 3 documents to hand out to you today, so I'm going to give them to the...
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Chair, board members. My name is Felix Mario Huerta Jr. I'm the Operating Engineers Local Union Number 3 representative assigned to negotiate this contract. We began unionizing in March, April, and May of this year, last year. On May 23rd, the state of California ruled that we had won the election. The very next day, I submitted a letter, which you'll get a copy of, dated May 24th, that essentially says we would like to meet and confer. We would like for the wages, benefits, and conditions of employment to remain in the status quo condition. That's what happens once you begin bargaining. Everything stays in place. In the city, in the county, all the special jurisdictions that we have, the conditions of employment stay in place. Unfortunately, your labor relations manager, along with your general manager, convinced you to change the conditions of employment. So if you remember, on June 10th, you eliminated the policies and procedures that existed at the time. They're called PRPs. They've been around since 2015. And on June 10th, you created a new set of policies and procedures. The next day, your labor relations manager sent me a letter saying, we would like to let you know that we changed the policies and procedures, and if you're interested in meeting and conferring over the new policies that you never negotiated with the union about, we're interested in doing that. So the very first session of bargaining, we won on the 23rd. The 24th, we sent this letter asking for status quo. The first bargaining session, we said to your labor relations manager, what you did in June, on June 10th, is in violation of the law. You modified the conditions of employment without talking to us. And we began the first conversation to say, what you did, you started off on the wrong foot. We will have to file a complaint, a lawsuit, under the PUC if you don't rescind this action. From that date to the date that we filed this, October 4th, we had to file a writ to say to you and to your general manager and your labor relations officer, what you did was wrong. And so that is going to court. Now, your labor relations officer has essentially stopped bargaining with us. We submitted this on October 4th. On October 17th, at the last bargaining session that we had with him, he issued what he called his last, best, and final offer. We have met in November, we met in December, we met in January. We are not at impasse. The union continues to make concessions to the district's proposal, but he has essentially said, if you don't take our last, best, and final offer, we will take it to you and approve it next month. So I imagine he will have on your agenda for next month imposing a last, best, and final offer, even though he's currently not bargaining with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Felix. First name of Deep, and I'm having trouble reading the...
Raywell.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, venerable board members. My name is Deep Graywell, and I am graciously in my 7th year of employment here within SAC-RT at the IT department as a senior level employee. I'm also serving my 5th year as the elected president of the Administrative Employees Association. The AEA is a group of approximately 30 professionals from various departments within SAC-RT that include information technology, engineering, finance, procurement, marketing, and more. As the AEA, we strive to be a diligent and disciplined group of employees who are involved in performing the heavy lifting of the various projects and efforts of SAC-RT. During difficult times in the district's history, we've even made voluntary financial sacrifices and cost-saving recommendations to help carry our organization through tenuous conditions. Despite this, our very existence as the AEA has been challenged by the district soon after we respectfully declined additional financial sacrifices. After a decades-long history of being a self-represented group, we had little choice but to unionize last year. This decision obviously wasn't easy, but it's proven to be beneficial for at least the sake of our existence. We're now represented by Operating Engineers Local Number 3, or OE3, and have been in contract negotiations with the district since July of 2019. Recently, our negotiations, as mentioned, have abruptly come to a halt over a handful of outstanding articles that are financial in nature. The proposals made by the district within these articles are counterintuitive to other public sector organizations across the region. In fact, these proposals deter and prevent the district from attracting, hiring, and retaining respectable professionals to fill vacant positions within our unit. We just recently lost a talented new hire a few months back who was in the AEA. When I spoke to him about the reasons, he directly cited the policies of the district as, quote, red flags and, quote, nothing I've never seen before. Subsequent hires within our unit are also in a state of disbelief as they come to know what's happening here. If we can't hire and retain capable staff, then we must realize that we're at the forefront of a less optimal and less effective organization. And yet, our goals on any side of this room remain the same. We want to provide the public with a clean, safe, and efficient transit system, which garners goodwill and respect. To get there, we should really focus on the fundamentals of how we're going to accomplish these goals. In business, it's known that every penny counts. It should also be noted that every relationship matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Linda Minder.
This is very weird. I'm not used to this. I handed a paper. I thought it was just going to be given to you to follow up. I am visually impaired and count on RT. I do drive during the day, but I just 4 years ago had a car accident and moved to Fair Oaks, had to sell my house. On the form are the notes, and of course I don't have my reading eyes, so I don't know why I have it in front of me. I cannot get from Sunrise and Sunset to the Sunrise Light Rail Station. Mm-hmm. I have to take a 21 that takes me through the community and a lot of students to get to Mather, and we often miss the connection. But I account for that. My needs are, I'd like to get down the street, and talking to one of your 20-year veteran drivers last week, he said the 91 used to, the 91 used to do that. So this is all new for me. I said, oh my goodness, 4 years, I didn't know that. Okay. So where did it go? What can we do? I don't know his name, but I can get that for you if you tell me whom I should email. He said that he last October suggested to you folks to bring back the 91, but I'm quoting him, call it a 28. And I don't know where it starts and ends, but I listened to what helped me. It'll bring me from Light Rail Sunrise down over the river, follow kind of 21, but turn right on Madison, go into Orangevale, make a left on Main, to Greenback, to make a left out to Sunrise Avenue again. That's all that I cared about. He'll have more detail for you, but he said he's getting a number of riders that have to get off at Greenback and Sunrise and walk all the way up to like Illinois and Greenback. It's like, God, it's horrible in the car going to Winco that far. I can't imagine walking. So their needs are my needs, so I guess I'm speaking for them as well. But just thought maybe I'd ask you to reach out to him and get the details he gave you, or get them from him, and maybe try. I looked online and saw your mission statement, and of course I can't read it now, to help the customers get out in the region. He said nothing goes out to Orangevale, and they really, really need your help. And I'd like to get to oh crap.
Keep going. You're fine.
Okay.
You're fine.
I'd like to get to Winco and Walmart and my light rail station. Those are my needs, and I just thought I'd have someone look into it and get his name and get the details and get back with me.
Okay, thank you, Linda. And I do have the written document that you gave me, and I've passed it on to the general manager.
Okay.
And we'll follow up with you.
With me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. David Solomon.
Okay. Honorable members of the board, my name is David Solomon. I was SAC-RT senior architect for 17 years. I was also the vice chair of the SAC-RT Administrative Employees Association until I was laid off a year and a half ago. That's okay. I've moved on. I'm now an architect for the state, and I make about probably $10,000 a year more than I would have if I had stayed here. But I'm back tonight because I still care about what happens at RT. The first general manager I served under, Pilka Robinson, had always trumpeted the fact that 85% of RT staff were either driving the buses and trains or fixing them. And that impressed me. In order for a large organization to function with a relatively small administrative staff, those staff have to be extra competent. RT is fortunate to have that. I recall our current general manager, Henry Lee, shortly after I first met him, observing that the then AEA staff was top-notch. You still have very little redundancy among the professional staff, since most of them are the sole individuals in their respective positions or areas of expertise. So you need to do what you can to retain these individuals or lose the institutional knowledge that they hold on behalf of this organization. In the past 2 fiscal years, the state where I worked has offered its engineers and many other staff probably about 9.5% salary increases in order to stay competitive with the market with this historically low unemployment rate. Qualified professional staff are at a premium. Tonight you'll be meeting with your labor negotiator about a new contract with Operating Engineers Local 3. I hope that you can do what's right not only for the professional employees represented by OE3, but also for SAC-RT as an organization to ensure that you maintain the institutional knowledge and retain the highest caliber employees. I wish you all the best of luck as you continue to improve public transportation for the people of Sacramento and the region. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the last card I have from the public. Is there any other member of the public that would like to address the board who did not have an opportunity to turn in a card? Nope. Thank you very much. Next item.
Next item, new business, item number 7.1, motion, chair and vice chair of the SAC-RT Board of Directors for 2020. At the last board meeting, you nominated Vice Chair Hansen to become chair of the RT board starting tomorrow, and Director Miller to be vice chair starting tomorrow. We just need to ratify that intent motion from the prior meeting. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions of the board?
Move the ratification of that consent
Second.
motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Director Jennings and a second from Director Budge. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Congratulations, gentlemen.
Motion carries by 100 votes. Next item is item 7.2, the appointment of board for the boards and commissions appointment, and Shelley Valentin is here to introduce the item.
Good evening, board and everyone here tonight. Before you is the list of appointments to board and committees for discussion and action. But in a moment, I will ask our clerk to assist in calling out each item for discussion and vote. But before that, please allow me to provide staff recommendations on the last 2 board appointments, F and G, of which a member of the SAC-RT management team or a representative who is not a member of the board can be appointed. First, on the retirement board, it requires the board chair to appoint 2 management members, and that's defined as a board member or a member of SAC-RT's management staff. Staff recommends that our GM, Henry Lee, continue to serve as one of the 2 management members, with a second open position, an alternate, being filled by either a board member or, if you wish, a SAC-RT staff member as well. Second, on the paratransit board, 2 SAC-RT representatives are needed. This appointment is not limited to a member of the SAC-RT board, and in fact, all the current appointees from both the county and the city of Sacramento are not elected officials. For the purpose of a smooth transition of ADA and non-ADA services from Paratransit Inc. to SAC-RT, staff strongly recommends that the board appoint either 2 SAC-RT management staff or, as an alternative, 1 management staff member and a representative from the Mobility Advisory Council. Having SAC-RT staff on the board will help ensure that the details of the transition plan are carried out effectively. As elected officials, you are all extraordinarily busy and taking on the commitment to negotiate and finalize the operational details of a transition in the next several months. It may be too much to ask of our board members. Staff may be better positioned to dedicate the time necessary to facilitate that transition. From SAC-RT staff, we recommend Lisa Hines, VP of Safety, Security, and Customer Satisfaction, and myself, Shelley Valentin, VP of Integrated Services and Strategic Initiatives. Lisa and I are committed to representing SAC-RT effectively on the Paratransit Board, and as Vice Presidents here at RT, we both oversee critical functional areas, including safety, customer satisfaction, HR, and labor relations, and will be dedicated to ensuring a smooth transition and making our customers our top priority. Alternatively, we have from the Mobility Advisory Council and SAC-RT, we highly recommend Charles Johnson, who is here tonight, to be appointed. Having a community stakeholder and a paratransit service customer will provide the board with a valuable insight to ensure that decisions made by the board will always have the best interests of our customers. Thank you for that opportunity to provide recommendations. Unless you have questions for me, I will now turn you over to Cindy to go over the board and committees for discussion.
Are there any questions?
We have to go through the list.
Yeah, we'll take one at a time. Thank you.
Ready? Okay, first before you is a motion appointing 2 SAC-RT board members and 2 SAC-RT board member alternates to the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority. Currently, Directors Howell and Miller serve as the representative and representatives, and Director Hansen and Kennedy serve as the alternates.
Okay, with the 2 members, are they interested in continuing service?
I'll continue.
Yeah, I'll continue, but if someone's
Okay.
wants
No, that's
the
good.
job,
That's
I'll-
good. That's good.
Move approval of the current slate.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, Linda. Is that with the alternates as well?
Yes. Director Budge has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Motion carries at 100 votes. Item B, motion appointing 1 SAC-RT board member and 1 SAC-RT board member alternate to the Sacramento-Placerville Transportation Corridor Joint Powers Authority. Director Budge currently serves with Director Natoli as alternate.
And are the 2 of you willing to continue service?
You're willing to.
Okay, then the chair will make that motion. Is there a second? Second from Director Harris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Next item.
Motion carries at 100 votes. Item C, appointing 1 SAC-RT board member and 1 SAC-RT board member alternate to the Downtown Riverfront Streetcar Project Policy Steering Committee. Currently, Director Harris serves as representative and Director Budge as alternate.
Does that still exist?
It exists, but they
Everybody's
haven't
asking.
met in a while.
It hasn't met in 9 months.
Okay, so we have the current slate as a motion from the vice chair and second from the chair.
6 months.
We good with all that?
We're fine.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Next is D, motion appointing 1 SAC-RT board member and 1 SAC-RT board member alternate to the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority. Currently, Director Hume serves as member and Director Natoli as alternate.
Directors willing to continue service?
Yes.
Mr. Natoli, Mr. Hume. The chair will make that motion.
Second.
The vice chair seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Motion carries at 100 votes. Item E, appointing 1 SAC-RT board member to the San Joaquin Regional Rail Stations, Sac Joaquin Regional Commission Stations Development Committee. This is a new committee that was just created by the Rail Commission in San Joaquin County, and they're asking for 1 board member to sit on their committee.
Vice Chair Hansen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This affects Elk Grove, City of Sacramento primarily, as far as I know. We've got about 4 stations in the city, and I don't know, you're already on the San Joaquin Joint Powers Board, so it might be better. Phil, it also affects Natomas in the central city, so I don't know if anybody has an interest, but I just thought I'd point that out. Or I'll do it if you really want me to, but I don't have any burning desire.
Mr. Hume looks like he wants.
I'd make that motion then.
The chair will second.
What's the motion?
To have Mr. Hanson serve on the board.
Okay.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you for your volunteering.
Motion carries at 100 votes. F, chair appointment of 2 board member or 2 management members to the retirement board. Currently, Chair Kennedy serves, whose term expires in December of 2021. Mr. Lee is serving also as a representative, and Director Jennings is serving as the alternate, and their 2 terms expired last December.
So we need the,
We need
Second.
1 member and
Okay.
1 alternate.
Mr. Jennings, are you willing to serve as an alternate continued? Absolutely. Okay, then I will make the motion that Mr. Lee fulfill 1 role and the alternate be fulfilled by Director Jennings. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Motion carries, 100 votes. Item G, a motion appointing 2 representatives to the Paratransit Board of Directors. Currently, Directors Hume and Hanson serve on that board.
Vice Chair Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We passed over the consent item, but I just wanted to point out, Ms. Fink is in the room, who's the Executive Director of Paratransit, or Executive CEO, as well as some of the people who worked on this. But we did come to a very, I think, amicable agreement on how to move forward as the 2 agencies. And given that, Mr. Hume, I haven't had a chance to speak to you, but I think the staff recommendation has some merit, but I would recommend that we choose Charles from the MAC as one of them. And I thought it was kind of clever to suggest Lisa Hines if she continues to be willing. Are you willing, Lisa? Okay. So I'll make a motion that we appoint those 2. I intend to continue to be engaged in the issues given my role on the board. I hope Mr. Hume does as well. I wanted to congratulate him on completing his term as president of the Paratransit Board last week. And I think that we have a beneficial relationship to look forward between the agencies. And I think it's a really awesome reflection of the 2 executives from the agencies working together to come to the agreement and to chart a path forward. So the last thing I'd say to the 2 people we just recommended, it is only for 6 months because the 4-party agreement ends July 1 and the next paratransit meeting is until March. So you probably only have a couple meetings to attend.
I'll second the motion.
I'll offer a substitute motion. At the last meeting this item came up. There was some concern from Paratransit Council that having RT employees as members of the board of directors overseeing the transition might be a potential conflict of interest. Whether or not that is true, I don't know, but I think it raises the specter enough that I would think we should probably steer clear of that. There was also some expression by other members of the board that I retain my position on the board, so I would offer a substitute motion that we appoint Charles as the MAC member and myself as the second member.
Chair will second that motion. Is there any questions, comments? Yes, and Mr. Barnbaum, you are correct. You do have a card in.
Yes, President Kennedy and members of the board, I have a card in specifically for speaking to you about the transition of Paratransit Incorporated in-house to Sacramento Regional Transit and the conversation that took place Thursday evening at the Paratransit Incorporated Board of Directors. I had read into the record, as the issue paper states, starting with 2 representatives are on page 3 of 4.
I'm sorry, Mike. I want council to chime in here.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to comment on Director Hume's concern regarding the assumption that there is a conflict to have an employee sit on the paratransit board. I do not believe that there is a conflict. In order for somebody to not, under the statutory rubric that governs nonprofits, a board of director would have a conflict if he or she were to materially financially gain from an action. In other words, if the board is considering a contract and they're going to, it's kind of like a 1090 violation. And I do not see any circumstance in which an RT employee would materially financially gain from any action. And it's also worth noting that the statute doesn't say they cannot serve on the board. It just says that they would have to recuse themselves if there is a material financial conflict. So, I mean, I've gone around and around in my head and thought, what, does anyone I work with fall into this category where they would materially financially benefit from an action taken by the paratransit board, and I cannot, unless they're awarding a contract to their own company, I cannot see how they would have a conflict under the statute.
Okay, thank you, counsel. And one of the things, Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is a specifically agendized item. If you could tailor your comments specifically about the appointment of 2 representatives?
Yes.
Be very narrow on that, because it's pretty clear on the agenda.
Yes. And so when this particular matter came up and I read the paragraph about paratransit board appointments in the record at Thursday's meeting, it was something that turned my head, and I was like, yeah, you need to get up and read into the record the facts that are coming up on Monday night, on Thursday night, so people are prepared over the weekend, and if people need to come to the meeting on Monday night, be prepared to come. And so based on the discussion we had Thursday about the board appointments and the dialogue going on this evening, I'm going to have to fully 100% agree with the substitute motion to appoint Director Hume and Mr. Johnson to the board up until Tuesday, June 30th, for the sake of the transition, based on the conversation and dialogue that happened. So I'm going to go on record from Thursday and tonight and support the substitute motion on the table this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I will speak to the motion as the seconder, that I believe that right now is the time that we need continuity, and I believe that Mr. Hume brings that continuity. And I am also very pleased that we're going to have MAC representation on there. So that was my reasoning for seconding.
Could I speak to that?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason I didn't nominate a board member is I spent 3 hours working with Tiffany and Henry in a very structured but thoughtful conversation to come to the agreement that we reached. I happen to believe that right now we're in a good place in having a board member people who get lobbied by folks with resources and other things. I don't think it's appropriate at this time. I think the agencies have an agreement in place on how to move forward. We ratified that tonight. Paratransit Board has ratified that. And it's time to let the staff work through these things without us getting involved, is my perspective. And I would encourage the board members to reject the substitute motion and approve the original motion.
Thank you. Is there any other comment? Okay, with that, we will call the question on the substitute motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No. Abstain.
Roll call vote, please.
Okay. Director Budge? Yes. Director Hansen?
No.
Director Harris?
No.
Director Howell?
Yes.
Director Hume?
Aye.
Director Jennings? Nay. Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Natoli?
Aye.
Director Chenier?
No.
Is that a no?
No.
Director Cerna?
Abstain.
Chair Kennedy?
Aye.
And the results? Motion passes at 56 votes. So the substitute motion, having Charles Johnson and Director Hume sit on the Paratransit Board, passes at 56 votes.
Thank you very much. Next item.
Next item is the General Manager's Report, item number 8.
Excuse me.
Happy New Year, Chair Kennedy, members of the board, and the public. Maybe this is a little bit too late to say Happy New Year. We have been very busy since our last meeting. And before I turn it over to our federal and state advocates for government affairs updates, I would like to give an update on a couple items. On December 14th, the Sacramento team and the holiday bus participated in the 37th Annual Santa Parade. Sacramento staff and the bus marched in the parade to share the holiday spirit. We also offered free rides to parade attendees. In keeping with the holiday spirit, late last year, Sacramento was able to donate one of our cutaway buses to the non-profit organization Asian Resource Inc., ARI. We use the bus to coordinate adult transportation services and to support the various wonderful programs and services they provide throughout the county. ARI was able to outfit the bus in December as the Para Express. They rode throughout the county singing carols and providing holiday cheer. I would like to take a second to share a short video that captures those holiday activities, very short.
Thank you, Sacramento!
Okay, thank you. In other news, Sacramento was thrilled to partner with Visit Sacramento on New Year's Eve for people to come out and celebrate. By providing free rides, we offered a safe, convenient, and family-friendly way to travel to the festivals without having to drive. Ridership estimates show that over 5,000 individuals utilized the free service in the new year, which was much more than the previous years. And also, just before the end of New Year, the end of the last year, Sacramento hosted executive staff from the California State Transportation Agency on a tour of rail yards and the river district, and to showcase our new zero-emission buses, we took Undersecretary Corover and Assistant Secretary Addison on a tour of the project site. Later this week, Sacramento will be submitting a $130 million grant request to the California STA's Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program. Sacarte's application calls for double tracking of 7th Street in the rail yard that will improve light rail frequency on the Green Line and prepare for growth in the rail yard. We also requesting a number of new and replacement light rail vehicles that will help us operate this service. We look forward to submitting and hearing back on this important project for the region. If you recall, last year we submitted about $160 million request for Sacarte's light rail modernization project, which we get about $85 million grant from the state. This year we are trying to submit $130 million for the rail yard development. And also, another topic, I want to share a few photos from our press conference last week announcing our new airport express bus service. As Sacramento continues to grow towards a world-class city, a frequent and direct public transit connection to the airport is long overdue. I want to thank our stakeholders advocates and the board who encouraged SAC-RT to prioritize the airport connector service. Based on the great feedback we have received from the public and in media reports, transit service to the airport is something that many had been waiting for. There's some pictures showing. Also, last week, we launched Smart Ride to 6 new zones, including downtown, and continued the promotional program where 5 or more passengers together can get a ride for free. As you can see, this picture, our public has already taken advantage of that. 7 SACOG staff members used the service to go out for lunch. And we will provide more information on our Smart Ride program to the board and the STA board very soon. Then before I turn it over to Junior, Jeff, and Mark, I want to mention that this afternoon, Director Chenier was at the Capitol testifying in front of the Assembly Transportation Committee regarding SAC-RT's free ride program for students. We don't have the picture for that. Direction is. Yeah,
we know what he looks like.
Our groundbreaking program has garnered local and national headlines, and others are taking notice. Assemblywoman Gonzalez is championing a bill at the state that would make all Californians under 18 free to ride transit. She invited Director Chenier and others to come share our story and the impact it is having on our users' life. Thank you, Director Chenier, and all of our partners who made this program a reality. Now, Junior and Mark, the podium is yours. This is our annual tradition to ask our federal and state advocacy firms to give us an update.
Great. Thank you, General Manager Lee. Good evening, Chair Kennedy and members of the board. I'm Julie Minerva with Carpy and Clay, and on behalf of myself and Jeff Booth, here he is, with Info Strategies. It's a pleasure to represent the Sacramento Regional Transit District before the U.S. Congress and the federal agencies in Washington, D.C. We are here tonight to provide a brief federal update and outlook. While there is a great deal of uncertainty in Washington on many fronts, we are fortunate to be starting this year with a fully funded federal budget. Congress passed and the President signed an omnibus appropriations bill for fiscal year 2020 just before the Christmas break. So Jeff is going to give us some highlights of those opportunities in the FY20 bill for SAC-RT. Jeff?
Thank you, and good to see everybody again. Happy to be back. I think the points I want to focus on are, first of all, the Capital Investment Grants Program, which is where any rail projects or bus rapid transit projects will be funded in the region. Now, the issue with the program is that it competes with a lot of other general funded activities in the bill, and it took a hit from last year. The program was reduced by $500-some million from last year and $300-some million below the authorization bill. So that is a challenge for the program in terms of the funding cuts. We're largely due to, as I said, competition in the bill with other general fund programs. And that will continue this coming year, this current fiscal year, in part because the budget agreement only provided $5 billion of overall general fund increases for all the functions of government that are funded by the general fund. So that competition will continue this year. And so tough decisions will have to be made by the appropriations across the 12 subcommittees. But the good news is that we did see another plus up in the bus and bus facilities program beyond the formula and discretionary grant levels. We saw the BUILD program, which is a discretionary grant program, be funded at $1 billion. And the real good news for you is that the alternate fuels tax credit was rolled back to January 1st of 2018. So that's a substantial amount of money to SAC-RT that fuels tax credit was rolled back and will be effective January 1st of 2018 through the conclusion of this fiscal year or this calendar year. So that's great news for RT, and it's been something we've been fighting hard for at the federal level. Julie?
Great, thanks. Well, and as you know, there's always more work to be done. So Jeff and I consulted our crystal balls to figure out how this year is going to look. And I can tell you it's definitely a hurry up and wait kind of year, which is pretty typical when we have a presidential election cycle. But while it's hurry up and wait, we have to make sure that we are ready for these opportunities. So I wanted to highlight a couple of key milestones early in the calendar for you, and things that we will be working with SAC-RT staff on. The first one is that the president is set to release his fiscal year 2021 budget proposal on February the 10th. This is earlier than we've seen the administration release the budget by about 6 weeks, so that will help to get the ball rolling. Once that happens, we'll be working with your congressional delegation on programmatic requests, because as Jeff talked about, the CIG program did take a hit, and we're going to need to boost that back up in FY21. And then as well, we need to really start working on FAST Act reauthorization. That's going to expire on the end of September of this year. So there's a lot of work to be done. We know that you come to DC, and we always appreciate the opportunity to help you further those relationships and those conversations, because it's incredibly important. The APTA conference is taking place in March, and I know Henry and some folks are coming out for that, and then of course cap to cap. So regardless of the other noise that's going on in Washington, we still will see a budget for FY21. We're still going to see a FAST Act reauthorization, and there's a really big role for you to play there. So we look forward to helping you with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Good evening, Chair and Directors. Mark Watts representing you in the state capitol. And first of all, I'm going to bring you up to speed on a couple things that have taken place pretty much in the fall of this year, and give you a little bit of a forecast of what I see coming out in the coming year. As a reminder, the legislature adjourned for the interim back in mid-October, and January 6th was the date that they returned, and we're starting to see bills filter in from their return to Sacramento. Not as many as we've seen in past years, but I think we're going to see a flood as time passes. And I apologize again. Every time I seem to come here, I get a choked up throat, but it must be something in the trees around here. The governor has done his state budget. We expect his state of the state to be coming up. I will point out in the state budget that they stayed true to the promises that were made in SB 1, whether it's highways, repair, new roads, or transit funding. They've maintained the promise that was reflected in the passage of that bill. In fact, I dug into the underlying numbers for the transit fund, the public transportation account, and determined that there's probably about a $50 million increase year to year attributable to the amount of sales of diesel fuel. So that's a good news. So as we look forward for the legislature in its entirety, the agenda is going to focus in on housing, homelessness, probably some more work on wildfires, PG&E, and Southern California Edison, as well as water. So those will be probably top of mind. What did 2019 bring us? Well, I will say that there's one particular appointment that was made by the governor back in April, who took position in the summertime, and that's Secretary Kim. Your leadership has developed a very, very good relationship with him as a Capitol observer. I can't say enough about how good that's coming together. That was evidenced by his appearance at the airport transit service, and I expect that Mr. Lee and the team will be successful again this year in their TIRCP. Moving on, the two key things that happened were pretty much in the fall. There was the executive order back in September that was direction to Department of Finance and Caltrans to try to bring transportation funding in line with state goals on climate and the environment. We haven't seen what that translates into. There's been a working group. We expect to see product of that in the coming weeks. And most recently, the governor did issue a homelessness and housing executive order, and largely it focuses in on trying to come up or identify unused facilities that could be used for rent or Other means of providing housing and shelter. General Services has their rota of properties that are unused. Caltrans has the freeways, and they're supposed to develop rent agreements for counties and cities. Food and Ag has the fairs that of the state, and they need to look at their roster to see if there's some facilities there. Beyond that, looking forward to legislation for you. There's 2 items that we've been working with your management with. One is bus on shoulder. It doesn't necessarily need to be a bill. There's been some conversations with the Secretary's office. At least one other state agency, one other county agency is looking at the same thing. And there is a recognition by the Secretary and his staff that a bus on shoulder operation should be something that could be moved ahead in California. And they think they can do it based on historic precedents. In San Diego, do it on a administrative basis, but we may need legislation to shape it up. And just this afternoon, I learned that the California Transit Association is going to be promulgating legislation, but then you've got a whole wide group of people trying to force fit themselves into that program. So my suggestion at this point in time is monitor that and see if we can make headway with the Secretary's office. Secondarily, there's been an issue ever since the enactment of the Public Employees Reform Act back in 2013, PEPRA, and that is the fact that your retirement board is not a PERS board and therefore doesn't have reciprocity. It makes it difficult for recruitment in terms of some of the middle management folks looking at their futures and declining to come on board. If you need more details, your council has really dug into this and has got a real strong understanding. I'm still learning it, but we're developing legislation that may be considered in the coming year. And with that, I would bring my presentation to a close and answer questions if you have them.
Director Chenier.
Thank you. I would like to request that you keep an eye on AB 1350, which was the Gonzalez bill that Henry referred to, but also check in with the city lobbyists on this. I think together we can do it. We have a number of jurisdictions who are participating in the program.
May I disclose something?
Yes.
The author made, I'm sorry, through the chair. The author today referenced the person that she has to discuss financing with. Well, he's the chair of the board that I also represent, the other transit agency in the state. And I've had some real hard discussions with him. So I'll be watching this for both of your entities all the way through the process.
Well, and I think the provision that this could count against your fare box recovery is really important, even if there's not funding directly for it. So I think it's important.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
I'm the speaker.
Yes, I understand, Jeffrey. We're doing some housekeeping here.
Chair Kennedy, I prepared a kind of an outline of the PEPRA legislation that we're proposing. If the board wants to know the details, I can present that. If not, it's up to you.
You mean tonight, or is it something that
I can do it right now?
Sure.
Okay, so I wanted to give you guys an overview of the legislation that we have drafted and have asked Mark to try to find an author for, and it deals with a very particular problem that we are having in retention and recruitment with particularly mid-career employees. So RT became subject to PEPRA in about a year and a half after it actually took effect on January 1, 2013. We became subject to it December 30th of 2014. And under PEPRA, there are 2 types of public employees for pension purposes. There are classic employees and there are new employees. Classic employees are individuals who were hired before January 1, 2013 by the agency that they work for and that are participants in their were participants in their pension plan before that date. And they are subject not to all of the terms of PEPRA, but to the pension plan that existed at that time. New employees are subject to all of the terms of PEPRA. One of the problems that PEPRA has for regional transit is that it has a compensation cap that is different from the IRS compensation cap that we have always been subject to. Under the IRS compensation cap, for purposes of determining somebody's pensionable compensation to determine their pension, the cap is set at $230,000. But under PEPRA, it is set at $126,000. So there's quite a gap between what is considered pensionable compensation. And so as a result, new employees who come to us from other agencies where we don't have reciprocity, and regional transit's pension plans do not have reciprocity with any other plans other than their own plans. So those employees come here and their pensionable compensation is capped at 126. So let me give you an example. If, let's say you have an employee who is 62 years old, has worked at regional transit for 20 years, and has an average annual compensation of $175,000, under the IRS compensation cap, their pension would be $70,000 a year at the time they retire after 20 years of service. But under the PEPRA cap, it goes down to a little over $50,000 a year. So there's a gap of about $20,000. And the employee who's subject to PEPRA, that $50,000, they've contributed about $174,000 over the course of 20 years. The classic employee does not contribute. So it's $70,000 with no contributions. The new employee has contributed and has a compensation of $50,000 a year. So they have a $20,000 gap for the same person, basically. So if we were to eliminate the PEPRA cap for RT employees and only use the IRS cap, then that employee would be able to get the $70,000, but they would contribute $227,000 over the course of their 20 years of service at regional transit. So we've had a lot of employees who come and they find out that we don't have reciprocity, we're not a CalPERS employer, and they either rescind their offer or they quit. So we have had that happen, or they just don't apply. And so that's why we want to pursue this exemption in PEPRA. I mean, they would still be subject to all the other terms of PEPRA, including, the vesting terms and everything else, except for the cap would go away. The other thing that we've included is an exemption from the prohibition on airtime. And we've drafted it so that an employee who, for example, someone like Henry who came to us from another agency out of state would be eligible, if he didn't vest at his previous employment, would be eligible to purchase airtime up to 5 years of airtime. It's a considerable expense, but if they wanted to, they could invest in their pension, and that is geared towards trying to lure people over who have not vested and they don't want to come over, and it gives them the opportunity to purchase the service credits that they would lose otherwise. So that's basically the gist of the bill that we're having Mark try to find an author for.
Question, Mr. Chair?
Questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah. Just on the second part, though, if I recall correctly, PEPRA eliminated airtime.
Correct.
Irrespective of reciprocity, RT, I mean, it did it for all public agencies,
Right.
eliminated that. So you're going to be seeking legislation that would undo that?
It would exempt regional transit. It would be a narrow exemption only for regional transit.
Mark, give any odds on what that might chance of success?
Is Mark still
of
here, or did he leave? Yeah.
Well, that's fine to ask, I guess. In light of what you've explained, but I just think that's, you got a better chance at the other part of that than you do that part. So, thanks.
Right.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Is that the full general manager's report? We do have one speaker slip. That's it? Okay. Jeffrey Tardigia.
Thank you, Jay, and RT for being for the Youth Pass. Today, 2017 was the first time that legislation had been introduced. I will be pursuing that with the appropriations. But I will also point out to you, governor's budget. All they're interested in transportation and their highlights is dealing with DMV. So look at the funding through there and realize I think you have better source of federal and dollars looking at to see what's going to be happening. And I've said that before. Unfortunately, locally, we have an issue that we need to figure out how we in the world get a sales tax, a transportation tax here locally. And we need to figure that out fast.
Thank you, Jeffrey. All right, that next item?
Item 9.1, Paratransit Inc. Special Board Meeting of December 18th. You have a written report in your package. If Director Hume has anything further to add.
I believe it's been covered.
Thank you. Next item is the announcement of closed session items. And Chair, I was just handed a card for item 13B as a speaker, but let me announce those items first.
Okay.
Closed session, item 13A, conference with legal counsel pursuant to section 54956.9, existing litigation, Gautier versus RT. And 13B, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to section 54957.6, district negotiator Hilda Herrera, manager of labor relations, employee organization OE3, and the speaker card is from Felix Huerta.
Mr. Huerta.
Thank you very much. I did want to say one additional comment. You have another document before you dated January 10th, and this is my latest communication to your labor relations AVP, Stephen Booth, about the status of bargaining and the issue that we see before us. I think the letter lays out our position. I started toward the conversation, which is, even if SAC-RT has not modified its positions, the union has continued to modify our positions, so we're still in bargaining. So any attempt to, quote-unquote, impose the last best and final offer, which I believe is scheduled for discussion in 2 weeks, that will be another problem. A separate lawsuit will be filed because what we're talking about is bargaining, and we're still in bargaining. A position by one side, the insistence of a position on one side doesn't mean that bargaining has stopped on the other side. And so if that is what comes in a couple of weeks, you can be sure, just like the decision that you made on June 10th to change the policies and procedures without talking to the union, another separate issue will be filed because we continue to bargain. In the letter, it says very clearly that we've asked for what's called, and this is the only agency that I have that is covered under the PUC. It's completely separate from Myers-Mellis-Brown rules, completely separate from any other labor relations law that exists. The PUC rules are very clear that if we have a dispute, it's allowed to be resolved either in bargaining, mediation, fact-finding, or what's called arbitration. And so we're asking for you to direct Henry, to direct Steve to participate in fact-finding and or this arbitration board that's described in the PUC. You don't have that anyplace else in any of your cities or counties. So allow the process to take place and direct your labor relations officer to go back to the bargaining table and utilize these processes that are allowed under the law. It's not mandatory, but if you make a decision in 2 weeks to impose something on us, we're going to have a problem.
Thank you, Felix. Any questions? Okay, then.
Chair Kennedy, it's also my understanding there will be no report out of closed session for either item.
Correct. All right, with that, then, we will recess to closed session. I was wondering what it was at first. It's famous.